There are two kinds of phone calls you never forget. The ones that come too late, and the ones that come just in time. Mine came at 12:17 a.m. I remember the number on the clock because it burned itself into my memory. Red digits, silent house, Spokane asleep in that deep, unguarded way only the night gives you. The phone didn't ring politely. It erupted. Unknown number. Local. At my age, you don't ignore calls like that. You don't tell yourself it's spam. You don't wait for voicemail. Because when someone calls after midnight, it's never to say hello. Mr. Carter, a man said, his voice low and steady, but tight around the edges. My name is Noah Grayson. I need you to come to my cabin. Now. I sat up so fast the room tilted. This is about Lily, my daughter-in-law, my son's wife, the woman who had trusted my family with her life. What happened? I asked. Is she hurt? Where's Ethan? There was a pause. Not confusion. Not surprise. Recognition. She's alive, he said. But she shouldn't be. And I have something you need to see. Something. Not someone. Not news. Something. I'm in Cobbville National Forest, he continued. I'll send coordinates. Please don't tell anyone you're coming. The call ended. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, staring at a phone that felt heavier than it should. Because deep down, before I ever turned the key in my ignition, I already knew one thing. Whatever had happened to Lily, my son had planned it, and the forest had been chosen for a reason. The call that wasn't about rescue. I didn't think. Thinking slows you down. I pulled on jeans, a sweater, boots I hadn't worn since winter. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. As I backed out of the driveway, the streetlights cast those neat yellow circles on the pavement, orderly, harmless. The kind of light that makes you believe the world is under control. I knew better. The coordinates Noah sent led me away from the highway and onto roads that didn't bother pretending to be safe. Gravel. Trees pressed close. Branches scraping the sides of my car like warnings I refused to listen to. I kept replaying his words. She's alive. I have something you need to see. Not who you need to see. What? 40 minutes passed. Or maybe an hour. Time doesn't behave when fear is sitting beside you. When the cabin finally appeared, one low structure tucked into the trees with a single light burning, I felt a rush of relief so strong it scared me. Then I saw the man standing outside. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't waving. He was waiting. Noah Grayson looked like someone who belonged in places where things go wrong. Late 30s, still posture. The kind of calm that isn't natural, it's learned. He opened the door before I knocked. Before you say anything, he said quietly, you need to understand this. He stepped aside. She's inside, and your son doesn't know he was being watched. And in that moment, standing at the edge of that cabin, I realized something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't a rescue story. It was an evidence story. What he didn't show me. The cabin smelled like pine, metal, and something faintly medical. Noah closed the door behind me and didn't lock it. That detail stayed with me. People who expect danger lock doors. People who expect truth don't bother. She's in here, he said, nodding toward the back. I followed him down a narrow hall. My heart was pounding hard enough to make my ears ring, and for one reckless second, I expected to find an empty room. A lie. A misunderstanding. Instead, I saw Lily. She was propped, slightly upright, on a narrow bed. A thin oxygen line looped beneath her nose. Her eyes were open, glassy but aware. Her face was pale, in a way that wasn't just cold, it was exhaustion, the kind that comes from holding on longer than a body was meant to. Ray, she whispered. I dropped to my knees before I realized I was moving. Her hand was cool in mine, lighter than it should have been. She's stable, Noah said behind me. But barely. Exposure, dehydration. Shock. I swallowed. Where's the video? Not yet. Noah didn't answer. He didn't reach for a laptop or a phone. Instead, he said, before you see it, you need to hear this from her, not from a screen. Lily's fingers tightened weakly around mine. He didn't leave me by accident, she said. He planned what people would believe. I looked up at Noah, and for the first time I understood why the footage hadn't come first. Because once I saw it, there would be no way back. He wasn't trying to lose me. Lily's voice was barely above a breath, but every word landed heavy. He kept telling me what to say, she whispered. Weeks before the forest. I frowned. What do you mean, what to say? She closed her eyes. like she was replaying something she didn't want to see again. He'd smile, calm, gentle, a pause. He said, "If anyone asks, you just got confused. Trails can be tricky." My chest tightened. "He made me practice it," she continued. "Over dinner, in the car, even at the doctor's office. I got turned around," he'd say, and wait for me to repeat it. Noah stood against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't interrupt. "I thought he was scared," Lily said. "I thought he was protecting me from being judged, from losing control of my life." She looked at me then, eyes wet but clear. "He wasn't trying to lose me in the forest," she said. "He was trying to make everyone believe I'd already lost myself." The room felt smaller, because abandonment is one thing, but teaching someone how to disappear, that's something colder. And suddenly, I didn't just want to know what Ethan had done. I needed to know how long he'd been rehearsing it. The cameras that were never meant for people. Noah finally moved. He walked to a steel cabinet by the window and pulled out a weather-worn case, the kind hunters and surveyors use when they expect rain, dirt, and time to be unkind. "I need you to understand something first," he said. "I wasn't watching your son." I looked up at him. "I was running a wildlife survey," he continued. "Motion-triggered cameras, elk corridors, predators, migration patterns." He opened the case, just enough for me to see the labels, dates, GPS coordinates, trail numbers written in black marker. "These cameras don't care who walks past them," he said. "They record movement, heat, shapes." My stomach tightened. One of them picked up something it wasn't designed to see. Lily shifted on the bed. Her breathing quickened slightly. "It wasn't just one clip," Noah said. "It was a sequence. Same vehicle, same time window, same stretch of forest." I shook my head slowly. "You're telling me there's video of Ethan?" Noah met my eyes. "I'm telling you," he said carefully, "that the forest was already watching before I knew it needed to." He closed the case again. "And once you see what it caught, you won't be asking if he planned this. You'll be asking who helped him make sure it worked. The frame that shouldn't have existed." Noah set the laptop on the table, but he didn't press play right away. "This is from camera 14, he said. "Northridge, game trail that runs parallel to the old service road." I recognized the road instantly. Ethan had driven me there once, years ago, talking about how peaceful it was, how quiet. Noah clicked. The footage was grainy, night vision green. Trees like skeletons. Wind moving leaves that looked like water. Then a vehicle rolled into frame. Ethan's car. I knew it by the dent on the rear bumper, my fault. A garage mishap I'd never fixed. The car stopped. Headlights cut. Darkness swallowed everything but outlines. Then Ethan stepped out. He walked around to the back and opened the trunk. The wheelchair appeared next, slow, careful, practiced. My breath caught. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicked. He was methodical. Ethan moved Lily down the trail, the chair bumping softly over roots and dirt. The camera caught it all in detached silence. Then Noah paused the video. "Look again," he said quietly. I leaned closer. Another shape emerged from the trees. A man, taller than Ethan, baseball cap pulled low. He didn't speak. He didn't rush. He waited. My stomach dropped. "That's not you," I said. "No," Noah replied. I was 2 ridges over. The man stepped forward, helping steady the wheelchair. The two of them exchanged something, keys maybe, or a phone. Then the second man disappeared back into the trees. Ethan stayed behind, alone with Lily. I sat back, dizzy. This wasn't a husband snapping under pressure. This was a handoff. And whatever Ethan had planned for Lily, he hadn't planned to do it alone. The papers, she didn't understand. Lily's voice was barely above the hum of the oxygen concentrator. "He made me sign things," she said, "weeks before the forest." I leaned forward. "What things?" She closed her eyes, like the words hurt to touch. "He called it planning, protection. Said it was what responsible couples did when one of them was dependent. That word again, dependent. He brought a folder home from work," she continued. "Tabs. Sticky notes. He walked me through it slowly, like I was a child. Told me where to initial, where to sign. My hands curled into fists on my knees. "What was in it?" I asked. "A disability trust," she said, "and an insurance rider. He said it would make sure bills were paid if something happened to me." Something happened to me. I felt sick. "He told me it was temporary," Lily whispered. "That once I got stronger, we'd revise it. He said signing would take pressure off him." She opened her eyes and looked at me, then really looked. I didn't know it gave him control, she said. I didn't know he could move money without asking. I didn't know he could speak for me if I couldn't. My chest burned. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, the question tasting like guilt. She swallowed. Because he said if I questioned it, it proved I wasn't thinking clearly. Silence filled the cabin. That was the moment I understood the true cruelty of what Ethan had done. He didn't just plan for Lily's absence. He laid the legal groundwork to erase her voice. Long before he tried to erase her body, the medication he made disappear. Lily shifted in her chair, one hand trembling slightly as she reached for the blanket. He packed my meds himself, she said. The night before. That detail landed harder than I expected. Ethan had always been meticulous. Charts, schedules, color-coded pill boxes. He lectured nurses about dosage timing. I used to admire that about him. He said the forest air might make me nauseous, Lily continued. That he'd bring only what I needed. I looked at Noah. He was already pulling up another clip. Camera 2020. Creek bed. The footage showed Ethan crouching near the water, unzipping a backpack. He glanced around once, not nervous, just cautious, then pulled out a plastic pouch. Orange bottles, labels facing inward. He twisted the caps off, one by one, and dumped the pills into the stream. They vanished instantly, swallowed by the dark current. Then he rinsed the empty bottles, snapped them back into the bag, and zipped it closed. No rush, no hesitation. I felt something break behind my ribs. That was insulin, Lily whispered, and my heart meds. I stared at the frozen frame of my son kneeling by the water. This wasn't abandonment. This wasn't frustration. This was someone methodically removing the reasons another person stayed alive. Not a clearing. It wasn't a clearing, Lily said. Her voice was steadier now, almost distant, like she was reading from a memory she'd already survived once. He didn't leave me under the trees, she continued. He took me farther in. Noah nodded and switched to another camera angle. This one was closer, mounted lower, angled toward an old structure I barely recognized. A hunting shed, half collapsed. One wall patched with warped plywood, the door hanging crooked on rusted hinges. I'd seen it before, Lily said. On one of our early hikes. He remembered. The footage showed Ethan rolling her toward it, the chair catching on roots. He stopped twice, adjusting his grip, careful not to scrape her arms. Not out of kindness, out of control. He told me to wait, she whispered. Said he needed to check something. On the screen, Ethan opened the shed door. Darkness yawned inside. Then the chair disappeared into it. The sound didn't carry on video, but Lily flinched anyway. He locked it from the outside, she said. I heard the latch. That's when I screamed. Ethan stepped back into frame, tested the door once, then turned away. Not fast. Not panicked. Just done. The shed swallowed Lily whole, and the forest closed around it like it had always been part of the plan. He wasn't a stranger by accident. I didn't save her by chance, Noah said quietly. The words hung in the cabin like smoke. I looked at him, really looked this time, not as the man who made the call, not as the one with the footage, but as someone who had stepped into my family's story long before the forest. I saw Ethan months ago, he continued, at Sacred Heart. Parking structure. Level 3. Lily's fingers tightened around the edge of her blanket. He was angry, Noah said. Not loud. Worse than loud. Controlled. He was leaning into her chair, speaking through his teeth. I felt heat crawl up my neck. About what? You, Noah said. About her father asking questions. About money. About paperwork. Lily nodded faintly. He told me afterward that Noah was just some guy who wouldn't mind his business. Noah exhaled. I didn't confront him. I watched. He described seeing Ethan walk away, phone already in his hand. How Lily sat there afterward, motionless, staring at nothing for a long time. That's when I knew, Noah said. Not that he was cruel, that he was planning. I looked down at my hands. A stranger had noticed the danger, and I, her family, had mistaken silence for stability. That realization hurt almost as much as the footage. The story he told first. By the time the sun came up, Ethan had already spoken to the world. I found out the way most people do now, my phone lighting up with messages I didn't want to read. Turn on channel 6. Ray, you need to see this. Is this about Lily? My hands shook as I picked up the remote. Ethan stood outside Sacred Heart Hospital, framed perfectly between an ambulance bay and a blue hospital sign. He looked exhausted in a way that read as noble on camera. Rumpled scrubs, red eyes, voice just unsteady enough. "My wife Lily was taken last night," he said. "We were walking near the forest trails when someone approached us. I tried to stop them." "Taken." He used the word carefully. "Let it sit. She's confused sometimes since the accident," he added softly. "But she's never wandered off before. I just want her home. Safe." I felt cold spread through my chest. Kidnapped, confused, vulnerable. He was laying tracks, straight, clean ones, for the story he wanted everyone else to follow. I turned the TV off before the reporter could ask another question, because now I understood something essential. Ethan wasn't reacting to what had happened. He was controlling the narrative before anyone else could. He knew there was a third man out there. He knew questions would come. And by speaking first, he wasn't just protecting himself. He was building a version of reality where Lily never had the right words to contradict him. "Somewhere behind me," Noah said quietly. "He's giving himself room." I nodded, because if you're going to erase someone, the smartest thing to do is explain them away, before they're heard. The phone he paid cash for. Hank Lawson didn't raise his voice when he called me. That's how I knew it was bad. "Ray," he said, "your son didn't just prepare a story. He prepared tools." I sat at my kitchen table, the morning light doing nothing to warm the room. "What kind of tools?" I asked. "The kind people buy when they don't want to be found," Hank replied. "Burner phone, paid in cash, picked up at a convenience store off Highway 7. He emailed me the receipt, time-stamped. 2 weeks before the forest." I stared at the date. "Why 2 weeks?" I asked. "Because that's when planning turns into commitment," Hank said. "Before that, people still believe they might stop themselves." He'd already pulled cell tower pings. The burner phone lit up near the forest the same night Lily disappeared, then went dark forever. "Who was he calling?" I whispered. "That's the problem," Hank said. "Not who he called. Who answered." He paused, letting it land. "Someone who never shows up on his regular phone. Someone he didn't want traced back to him." I closed my eyes. This wasn't panic improvisation. This wasn't a man snapping. This was a son who had quietly rehearsed disappearing someone, and made sure the evidence would disappear too. Except it hadn't. Not all of it. The man who wasn't supposed to exist. Detective Vega didn't come alone. She brought a name. "The second man in the footage," she said, laying a thin folder on the table. "He's not family. Not a friend. Not military." She slid a photo forward. A stock image smile. Generic. Forgettable. The kind of face you'd never remember passing in a hallway. "Lucas Marin," she continued. "Or at least that's the name on the caregiver registry." "Caregiver?" I repeated. Vega nodded. "Private, short-term, cash-based. No long-term clients. No online footprint worth trusting." Lily's breathing hitched. "He came twice," she said. "Ethan said he was helping when he couldn't be home." Vega looked at her carefully. "Did he ever touch your phone? Your paperwork?" Lily nodded slowly. "He asked questions. A lot of them. About my meds, about my routines." That was when it clicked. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. Ethan hadn't just planned Lily's disappearance. He'd outsourced parts of it. Vega closed the folder. "Your son didn't want witnesses," she said. "So he hired someone who could disappear afterward." I stared at the photo. Ethan had trusted a stranger with his wife's life, and somehow believed that stranger would never talk. That was his mistake, because men like that always do, when they realize they were never meant to survive the story either. The sentence he taught her. Lily stared at the floor when she said it. "He made me practice," she whispered. I didn't understand at first. "Practice what?" She swallowed. "A sentence." Noah didn't move. Detective Vega didn't interrupt. The room seemed to hold its breath. "He said if anyone asked questions," Lily continued, "I had to sound casual, calm, like it wasn't a big deal." Her fingers twisted together in her lap. He'd say, "Try it again, Lily," and I'd say it. She looked up at me then, shame flickering across her face. Over and over. I felt something tighten in my chest. "What sentence?" Lily took a breath. Her voice came out flat, rehearsed even now. I just got turned around. The words hit me harder than any footage. "She said it wasn't convincing enough the first time," she went on. "He told me to smile a little when I said it, like I was embarrassed, like it was my fault." I remembered Ethan's interview, the way he'd spoken about confusion, wandering, vulnerability. This was where it came from. He told me, Lily said quietly. That if I loved him, I wouldn't make this harder than it had to be. Silence spread through the cabin. That sentence wasn't an excuse. It was a weapon. Ethan hadn't just planned Lily's disappearance. He had scripted her voice in advance, trained her to participate in her own erasure, and that, more than anything else, told me my son hadn't lost control. He had seized it. The call that timed everything. Noah didn't warn me before he pressed play. This one's short, he said. But it matters. The footage came from a camera mounted higher than the others, angled down toward a bend in the service road. Ethan's car rolled into view and stopped engine idling, lights still on. Ethan didn't get out. Instead, he lifted his phone. No audio, just body language. He checked the time on the dashboard, looked toward the trees, then spoke. One word. Now. Noah froze the frame. Cross-reference the timestamp, he said, with the burner phone logs. Detective Vega didn't need to look twice. It matches, she said. Same minute. I stared at the still image of my son sitting calmly behind the wheel. So, the kidnapping story, I began, was scheduled, Vega finished. Lily closed her eyes. He told me someone might find me, she said. That I should be grateful. Grateful. The words scraped something raw inside me. On the screen, Ethan ended the call and finally stepped out of the car. He walked around to the back, opened the trunk, and pulled out the wheelchair. The timing was flawless. Too flawless. This wasn't panic. This wasn't desperation. It was coordination. He didn't leave room for chance, Vega said quietly. He controlled the order, the witnesses, the story. I felt my hands shake not from fear anymore, but from clarity, because now there was no doubt left. My son hadn't been hoping Lily would disappear. He had arranged it down to the minute. And somewhere in the dark forest, someone else had been waiting for that call. The place with too many cameras. Detective Vega didn't suggest my living room this time. Too private, she said. Too easy for him to control. She slid a printed map across the table instead. Sacred Heart Hospital. Parking structure. Level 3. The place he feels safest, she continued. Badge access. Security. Cameras everywhere but ones he thinks work for him. My throat tightened. You want me to confront him there? Yes, she said. But not confront. Redirect. I stared at the map, memories bleeding into it, Ethan graduating medical school, Evelyn crying in that same hospital lobby, Lily wheeled through those doors after the accident. This is where he learned to manage optics, Vega said. Doctors do it all the time. Calm voice, reassuring phrases, plausible explanations. Noah spoke for the first time. He'll talk there. Why? I asked. Because he thinks he's already won, Noah said. And people who think they've won get careless. Vega nodded. You won't accuse him. You won't push. You'll offer help. Help. The word felt like a betrayal in my mouth. You'll tell him, she went on, that the media pressure is hurting you, that you're worried Lily's confusion is being misunderstood. My chest burned. You want me to repeat his lie? Just enough, Vega said gently, to make him finish it. Silence settled between us. I realized then what this plan really asked of me. Not to stop being a father, but to use the part of me that still sounded like one, to let my son damn himself, in the place he trusted most. And I didn't know which part of that scared me more. The lie I had to say out loud. I called Ethan from my car, hands tight on the steering wheel. He answered on the second ring. Too fast. Dad? His voice softened immediately, practiced concern sliding into place. Any news? I forced a sigh. Let it tremble just enough. That's why I'm calling. This media thing, it's getting out of hand. There was a pause. Not suspicion, calculation. I know, he said gently. I'm doing everything I can. I'm worried they're going to turn this around, I continued. Make it look like you weren't careful enough, like Lily's condition played a role. He exhaled, slow and relieved. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Hooked. I was thinking, I said, my throat burning. Maybe I could help. Say a few things. About her memory. About how she sometimes gets disoriented. Silence stretched, then Ethan spoke. Quieter now. Yes, he said. That would help. A lot. I closed my eyes. What should I say? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Just keep it simple, he replied. You don't need details. Just say she gets confused sometimes. That she might have gotten turned around. There it was. The sentence he'd taught her. People will understand, he added. Doctors already do. I felt something inside me harden. Where should we talk? I asked. Sacred Heart, he said easily. Parking garage. Level 3. Cameras everywhere. No one will twist your words there. No one. I ended the call and sat there, shaking not because I was afraid of my son anymore, but because I finally understood how completely he trusted his own story, and how little he suspected that this time it wasn't just the cameras watching him. The word he thought would save him. The parking structure smelled like oil and disinfectant hospital clean, trying to cover something mechanical and old. Level 3. Ethan stood beside his car, phone in hand, coat folded neatly over his arm. He looked calm, centered, like a man waiting to give good news. Dad, he said, stepping forward. Thank you for coming. I nodded, afraid my voice would betray me. We walked between the concrete pillars, cameras blinking red above us. I could feel them not as protection, but as witnesses Ethan believed were already on his side. You've always understood, he continued, lowering his voice. About Lily. About how complicated things got. I stopped walking. What exactly do you want me to say? I asked. He didn't miss a beat. That she gets confused, he said. That sometimes she doesn't know where she is. That she probably got turned around. He smiled faintly, reassuring, like he was explaining a diagnosis to a nervous family. That's all it takes, he added. Once people hear it from you, this whole thing settles. Something in my chest went cold. So, I said slowly, you want me to tell them she didn't know what was happening? Yes, he replied. It's kinder that way. Kinder. The word echoed through the garage. Ethan leaned closer. Dad, this protects all of us. That was the moment. Not when he admitted planning. Not when he spoke about the forest. But when he used that word, confused. Like a switch that erased responsibility. Behind him, a camera lens tilted slightly. And for the first time, my son realized he wasn't alone in the story he was telling. Not anymore. He didn't know he was being watched. Ethan was still talking when the first officer stepped into view. He didn't notice at first. That was the strangest part. He was too busy explaining, hands moving gently. Voice measured how things should be understood. How people would calm down once the right words were used. How confusion explained everything. Dad, he said, lowering his voice, you just need to say it once. After that, this goes away. Behind him, Detective Vega emerged from between two concrete pillars. Dr. Ethan Carter, she said evenly. Please place your hands where I can see them. Ethan froze. For a split second, his face went blank, not fear, not anger, calculation failing mid-process. What is this? He asked, forcing a laugh. There must be some mistake. Vega didn't raise her voice. You're being detained in connection with the attempted murder of your wife, Lily Carter. The word murder finally cracked something. That's insane, Ethan snapped, turning toward me. Dad, tell her. I can't, I said. He stared at me, stunned. You said you understood. I did, I replied quietly. I understand now. The officers moved in. As they took his phone, Ethan's eyes flicked toward the cameras overhead. Too late. He had chosen this place because he trusted it, because he believed the cameras would confirm his story. He didn't know that the forest had already told a different one, and that every step he took afterward had been recorded, timed, and waiting for this moment. As they led him away, Ethan didn't look at me with regret. He looked at me with disbelief, like someone who never imagined the truth would be watching him back. The evidence that didn't argue. The trial didn't hinge on emotion. It hinged on timestamps. Wildlife camera footage from the forest. Hospital security video from level 3. Receipts, burner phone pings, trust documents, insurance riders. Each piece fit without forcing. Ethan's lawyer tried fatigue, stress, misinterpretation, but the screens told a quieter, harsher truth. Planning, coordination, control. When the verdict came, I felt no relief, only weight. Because justice, when it arrives this cleanly, doesn't feel like victory. It feels like the final confirmation that the person you loved never planned to stop. The file that arrived after everything was over. A week after the verdict, when the house had finally gone quiet again, an email arrived from Noah. No subject line. Just an attachment. Camera 31, North Access Road. I didn't open it right away. At my age, you learn something most people learn too late. Some truths don't chase you. They wait until you're ready to carry them. Lily was getting stronger. Slowly. Not miraculously, just honestly. She laughed sometimes now. Real laughter. The kind that doesn't ask permission. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where denial had once felt easier than questions, and clicked the file. The footage showed a forest road I recognized. Ethan's car passed through the frame. Then, 3 minutes later, another set of headlights followed. A different vehicle. A different shape. Someone who never showed up in court. I closed the laptop. Justice had done its job. But truth, I was learning, doesn't always stop where the law does. If you've listened this far, you already understand something important, maybe something you've lived yourself. That silence is comfortable. That stories are powerful. And that sometimes the bravest thing an ordinary person can do is refuse to look away one more time. Thank you for staying with me, for listening, for being the kind of person who doesn't rush past the hard parts. Because stories like this don't end when the screen goes dark. They end when someone decides to see clearly and speak anyway.